Awesome, then let's get started. Today, Bitcoin and ideology. Maybe there's a lot of interesting questions in there in this topic. And I talk about that so much in the podcast where I was like, what is actually Bitcoin? And I get that ask actually a lot. Maybe let's just let's start with that kind of very overwhelming big question of what is a Bitcoiner? What is the ideology of a Bitcoiner? And how can we even approach that question? Let's start directly with Ben.
Yeah, it is a big question. I think ideologies in general are things that people define themselves by and occasionally try to put other people into buckets of. So how somebody might describe themselves as a Bitcoiner is probably different to how somebody externally might look at it and say that person is or is not a Bitcoiner. I think there are 1,000 different small ideologies that people would maybe associate with Bitcoiners in some way or other. Some of them are perhaps more common, some of them less common. I would simply say a Bitcoiner is anyone who is strongly an advocate of and interested in Bitcoin and doing stuff with it in some way, shape, or form. Very simple. I don't think a Bitcoiner necessarily needs to have any particular ideologies outside of the fact that Bitcoin is in some way a good thing.
I had a debate once on my podcast. Is a Bitcoiner someone that uses Bitcoin on a third party and has not their own keys?
I would say yes, but probably they could do better.
Just not very smart Bitcoiner, Just not very smart Bitcoiner, like kind of half-assed Bitcoiner, but still not non-Bitcoiner entirely,
How would you define it?
How would I define Bitcoiner? Well, for me, it's just someone who uses Bitcoin regularly in their lives. Or for a long time, or long-time holder, for example. But still, even if you're a long-time holder, here and there, you should still practice the tools, you should use the wallets, you should get some knowledge on what's going on in the ecosystem and everything. So if you get all that, that's when you're an actual Bitcoiner. Regarding of ideologies and all that, the main ideology that is separating the Bitcoiners now is whether Bitcoin is just the money or Bitcoin is more than just the money. So the purists versus pragmatists, right? Do you agree?
I'd frame it slightly differently.
How would you frame it?
Now, first of all, the question, what is Bitcoin, is a question I get a lot. And my answer to that, it's different things to different people, but my answer is it's an agreement on a fixed set of rules. And the reason that we agree on this fixed set of rules rather than another fixed set of rules is because of the how it's set up, the incentive structure, so that it's very hard to change unless we all think it's a good idea to change the rules. And that is the first and foremost thing, because what that enables is sound money, or money with a finite supply that can be sent from one person to another without third-party interference. And what that enables is for people to interact permissionlessly without permission from a government or from a bank or from this or that, to express value to one another and trade with one another without anyone being able to stop that. And that is the thing that solves all the other problems, because when we have that, then everything else can be built preferably somewhere else than on Bitcoin, because you can trade the sats for anything else. And the sat is the internal medium of exchange of the system itself. So the sat is sacred in that sense. It's the thing that is finite. It's the thing that makes the whole thing tick and work. So I think the use case is money. All the other stuff like decentralization and proof of work and whatnot, that are all means to a greater end, and that greater end is money with a finite supply that is nearly infinitely divisible, especially if you count the layer 2s and whatnot. Decentralization is a somewhat unfortunate means to that greater end. It would be much better if we could just trust a human being with a spreadsheet. But history shows that we can't. As soon as we give a human being access to the money printer, they cannot help themselves. Psychopaths will capture that thing and print more of it. So this is the first time that we can keep each other in check, so that cannot happen. So that, to me, that is the discovery or invention or whatever you may call it. That is the essence of the thing. And
Untemperable.
that is the ideology. The underlying ideology is I don't want to be told what to do with my time and effort. I want to be able to keep the fruits of my labor, and I want to be able to express value to other people without anyone interfering with that. And the double spend problem is the same. Like the way I see it, the double spending problem cannot be double solved. Either you solve it once, and then you get this finite supply thing, which is a side effect of that. But that is the solution to the double spending problem. You don't need a copy of that. Like resistance to replicability is the thing that we discovered here, and any replication of that or any attempt to copy that is futile at best, and at worst, it's a shitcoiner trying to take your stuff.
By the way, I think this kind of talks are amazing to have audience involvement because like on the panel is almost as many as in the audience. So please let's make it open, interactive, and as interactive and nice as possible. I think that's like the best case for like smaller audiences.
Yeah, we want both of the audience members to participate.
Didn't RBF solve the double spend problem by letting you double spend?
I'm not going to comment on that. Not
Short
with
answer,
Peter in the audience.
no. Because it wasn't spent until it was confirmed.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Final settlement.
Double spend on like the different rules and by your own choice. By just offering more money. So it's easier.
What was that? Like I didn't get the first.
Yeah, so she was asking, does full RBF cause a problem for the concept of double spending? To which
I said full RBF kind of solved the double spending issue by letting you double spend on your own will.
yeah.
Yeah.
What is full RBF?
So replaced by fee. Yeah. So I can submit a transaction to the broader network. It hasn't been written into a block yet because maybe I had a low fee or whatever, and I can just submit another one to replace it with a higher fee. So, and previously there was kind of relay policies or mempool policies to say, okay, if you don't have a particular flag turned on, then you can't do that. But it wasn't a consensus rule. It was just, part of the general policy of what a miner should or should not pick up and what a node should or should not relay. So I would say, as in my answer there, I don't think it's actually a transaction that has happened until it's in a block, and therefore RBF doesn't actually influence the double spend as a concept.
Totally agree.
To come back a little bit to the ideology in the community, it's really interesting when I thought about like when you were talking about the different communities that are now into Bitcoin, and there's a whole strain of different communities in Bitcoin as I discovered in my last 2 years. Like there are broad communities. There's like more the cypherpunks spend Bitcoin, Bitcoin maxis. Then there are maybe the treasury company things. And there's like many different variations of that. And there's like the people that are into Bitcoin, but also are into shitcoins, as we call them. Then there's like many different cohorts of that. And I was thinking about that, the decentralization of the narrative of Bitcoin, what value this is that we actually have, not like the herd mentality that we have like one narrative, like it rules, and like this is kind of the thing, but that we actually have this infighting, that we actually have the community fighting for what is the Bitcoin really narrative, what is the value of like having also decentralization inside the community.
So I think it helps, but I don't think it's actually particularly unique. I think any system which gets large enough naturally fractures into different smaller groups who have smaller disagreements. I mean, look at world religions, how many different sects of Christianity are there who believe in slightly different things and hate each other and want to kill each other for those tiny differences in their beliefs. I think anytime something grows, you end up with those kinds of splits happening. Bitcoin is simply no different in that regard, but I think we can benefit from it in that Bitcoin being both a monetary technology as well as a consensus algorithm, we can perhaps look at different ways to tweak consensus. As people say, I vehemently believe this thing, and somebody else says, I vehemently believe this thing, you can end up with chain splits, whereby it actually then forks off into things like Bitcoin versus the Bcash and BSV and other shit like that. And we saw the people who had those convictions believed a certain thing, and it turned out they were wrong. Good, I'm happy about that. But it's a good way to actually find the consensus. If they had been right, then I would have been on the wrong side, and I would have learned something from that. So I think having these kinds of arguments and splits can be helpful, but it is going to hurt a bunch of people, just because that's the way of things. So overall, yeah, it's not a bad thing, but I also don't consider it particularly unique to Bitcoin. It's just Bitcoin gives it some other angles that may not be there elsewhere.
By the way, do you think something like that is happening again? Like, is this like any possibility that like such a thing is happening again in Bitcoin as it's
so I assume you're referring to the Knots versus Core kind of OP return debate.
Not necessarily, but like, like this
that
is the
type of
current
thing.
one. Yeah.
Maybe. I think maybe there are some people crazy enough to change their idea of consensus rules and end up forking themselves off the network and come up with a different client and all that other random stuff. If they do, again, I think they'll probably be on the losing side. Those who tend to splinter off are usually the ones who lose in a game of consensus. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I think most people are actually just getting way too upset about what is actually a pretty minor thing as far as that particular debate goes.
Slightly disagree there, because I think the signaling to the network what is what matters here. Like even if the actual damage of the actual quote unquote upgrade isn't that lethal, I think it's still sending the signal that Bitcoin is now something else than money, and like catering to people who want to use it for other things. That sends a really fucking weird signal. And I don't know, like, just as if real estate right now is being used as a store of value or a medium of exchange over time, and that makes it worse as housing for people, because the billionaires buy out all the beachfront property, and people can't afford to own their own home anymore. So, and that is because the money is broken, so it is being used as money. But the inverse of that is true as well. When money is used for something else than medium of exchange over space and time, it becomes a worse form of money. So, and also there's the shitcoiners. It's hard to do shitcoins nowadays because they're running out of gullible morons to fool. So they have to find new retards. And unfortunately, they find new retards in Bitcoin that think that they can own a picture or own some data that they pretend is attached to the Satoshi, but it's not attached to the Satoshi. Like a SAT doesn't become. The whole system is predicated on the SAT being fungible, meaning one SAT equals one SAT. So if you try to tell people that this SAT is worth more than the other, then you're fucking with the entire thing. And owning the SAT is you cannot own information. This is the basic thing. What you can do is act as if you own it, because you're keeping a secret, the private key or the 12 words or whatever, and that is and you also believe the incentive structure of the system. So you find it improbable that someone else has the same key as you do, so that other people can spend the same coins. And you also find it improbable that the system will change to such a degree that the SAT will lose its value because you print more than 21 million of them. So when people attach other shit to this, it's sort of like saying that, look here, you can own a star in the Andromeda galaxy, and then you buy a certificate saying that.
Buy that stuff.
Yes, they do. But this is why this is a problem, because when you buy a star in the Andromeda galaxy, the ownership you have of it is exactly the same as every other person on Earth. If there's data on the time chain, everyone on Earth can see that data. and you need a third-party website to decode that into a monkey JPEG or a dick pic or whatever it might be. But the point is that it's not ownable. It's just information, and not even the Satoshi is actually ownable. It just allows you to act as if you owned it because of this secret keeping. So that's why this is the solution to the double spending problem. This is why there can only be one finite asset in this sense. People may pretend because good money drives out bad. So Bitcoin will drive out all the other stuff eventually. It's just that you have to have your cycles with the gullible retards along the way to flush them out.
So you're anti inscriptions, ordinals, and all the arbitrary data that are now on the blocks?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think I would have preferred if Satoshi hadn't encoded Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. I think the pure using Bitcoin purist as a derogatory term is absurd to me. I'm a proud Bitcoin purist. I want it to be as pure as possible, with as little interference as possible. The cost of running a node to be as little as possible, and I want people who are involved with Bitcoin to I want people to adopt my view of it in this sense, and that people working on it were like more concerned about that aspect. That if it is sound money, then it solves all the other problems eventually. It's because you can buy everything for money that is permissionless. You can use the sats to buy all the fucking shit coins and dick pics you want. But the fact remains, a centimeter is still a centimeter regardless of if I measure my dick with it. And this is the same for the Satoshi. It's just a number attached to a UTXO. But
what if people want to do more with it? Like more projects, more creativity, like more things. Like Bitcoin anyway, like has this base.
I don't want them to do that. And I want them, and this is my personal opinion. Other people may want that. I think it's detrimental to Bitcoin if they do that. And therefore, I'm going to use whatever influence I have to teach people to not fall for buying stars in the Andromeda Galaxy or
I'll do the opposite.
You go ahead and do it.
I love all the possibilities that tap.
Yes, and this is why real life is better than Twitter, because we can still sit here and be friends, Ryta. Yeah.
I'm wondering if I'm somewhere in the middle of you two, because I agree that it's detrimental, but I also think there is absolutely nothing you can do about it.
And this is where the word technical comes in. So maybe on a technical level, there's nothing you can do about it. But technical is not the right term to use with Bitcoin, because it is not a technology. It's an agreement on a fixed set of rules. It's a predicate. It's not backed by energy. It's backed by humans doing stuff. Like you running a node, you are the node, not the Start9. You are the miner, not the ASIC.
Absolutely. But also, the rules that you are agreeing to is a technical definition of rules, and those rules can be abused.
Absolutely, especially if they're allowed to be changed for catering to shitcoiners. Like the only use case. This is Jameson Lopp said this on Breedlove yesterday, I think, because he was asked the question, who actually wants this 100 kilobytes? What's the use case? And it's an edge. Even he, and he's been a proponent of shitcoins since forever, and all this stuff. And if you follow the money, all these people are invested in this thing. I don't know if Peter and Ryta are. I mean, I think they just enjoy life and trolling people and traveling around the world, and that's all fine. But what I'm saying is, the edge use case is for a very specific company that wants to do a very specific thing. And why?
I think it's
why
for
is that
everyone,
important?
Not for specific companies.
No, but
like,
it's
opening so many possibilities for it's opening so many possibilities for
like
developers, for anything. Well, to like the shitcoin stuff, literally.
Why would anyone want that who has half a brain? Like, why would you want shitcoins? This is the most important technology humanity has ever.
Well, because
arguably,
you want to use something secure as like the Bitcoin layer, and then you want to build fun stuff on it, like games and metaverses, and like whatever NFTs you may want, whatever.
Yeah, but NFTs are not non-fungible. Like they are like the stars in the Andromeda galaxy. If they're stored on 1 million nodes, then what's the fucking point? Like,
I think RGB is going to remove all this ordinals and inscriptions need, because it's just doing everything and more that those things could do, and without hurting the layer 1 at all.
Just quickly, I think you had a question since a long time.
Yeah, you already raised the point, which is great. But my question was, I could never understand who is proposing this change and why. My understanding was, core, we all agree that they're the protectors of the rules and everything. They're doing most of the changes. Why do they want to do it? I don't understand.
So there are multiple reasons for wanting to increase the size of the OP return relay rules, and I'm expressing here very carefully that it's the relay rules, because the consensus rules are not changing. You've always been able to put whatever sized OP return you want into a block.
It's the defaults, right?
Yeah, so the default relay rules are being changed in core in version 30, and it makes it somewhat easier to send large OP returns around. It doesn't change Bitcoin at all fundamentally at the consensus level, because the consensus level isn't changing. Why would somebody want it? As I said, there are a few edge cases currently, and they are just edge cases. But I would turn it the other way around. What does it hurt? Because right now you can store arbitrary data as much as you want in so many different ways. There's inscriptions, there's the horrible way of encoding it into addresses, which then bloats the UTXO set, so that's even worse. There's so many ways it can be done. OP return is provably prunable, and because you can prune it, that means it's causing less problems than those other ways.
Yeah.
But what it hurts is the community is confused and it's breaking up.
So I would actually argue back here, the people who are breaking it up are the ones who are complaining about it, because this is the kind of change that could have just gone through without anybody saying a thing, and nobody would have even noticed.
And that's
it's a social media
Now we're making
thing.
a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
But once again, just because you put so I have a mailbox and people are putting ads in it for all sorts of stuff. They're putting spam in my mailbox. I don't want that in my mailbox because it clogs my mailbox. So the solution to this is now to install a giant trash can next to the mailbox and hope that there will be less shit in it. Like less shit in the mailbox. And what I think will happen is like they will keep on putting shit in the mailbox and in the trash can. And the important thing here is that we're signaling that this is okay now. Instead of fixing the bug, we're like allowing inscriptions is a bug. Like it's an abuse of the intended thing.
So I would then go back to exactly what I said before. Whether it's a bug or not, if you can't fix it, let's come up with better ways of doing it. So installing the giant trash can beside is better than the status quo of letting them stuff your letterbox full.
Well, that's just your opinion, man.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, and I can. This is the rational argument from the core side. Yeah, I can buy that. But I think that the whole thing has hurt the community by signaling that we are now abiding to the will of malicious actors, and we shouldn't do that.
Or malicious actors, exactly.
People who are not Bitcoin purists.
No, you're so fucking wrong.
Yes, and I'm proud of it.
Well, this is like discrimination. Like, if you don't think like me, if you're not pure, you're a piece of shit and you don't belong here. Like, what the hell is this discrimination? Like, Bitcoin is supposed to be kind of like for everyone kind of thing.
No, it's for anyone, not everyone. Anyone willing to do the work. And first, you need to understand what problem it solves. It solves... it separates money and state. That's the goal here. Like that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out permissionless money, and anything that pulls in another direction is just confusing people.
Well, but including arbitrary data, like in the transactions and blocks, it has been there forever. It's just now it's increased, but it was there by design. So it's not a bug. It's something that. I think this is an opportunity, like not a bug at all.
Yeah, Well, that's just your opinion, Ryta.
I mean, yeah, I don't consider it a bug to be the ability to store arbitrary data because I think it's literally impossible to stop it. I do consider it a bad use case compared to money, but I also think that if money is a better use case than these other things, then money will outprice those things in terms of fees. I think the fee market will solve any kind of spam problems. People won't just put random shit on the chain if they have to pay a fortune to do it, unless they see value in putting that shit on the chain.
But this is sort of the problem. So if people think that other people nodes are free data storage for them, then that might be a bigger incentive to use Bitcoin than actually using it as money.
Then here's a question for you. Do you currently store your entire photo album of like your wedding photos and that sort of thing on chain? Because I don't. I could, but I don't think it's worth it to me. I think the cost of doing that isn't worth it compared to the cost of paying Google to store some photos in a Google Drive or whatever. And sure, I'm trusting a third party and it could get deleted, but I don't. My wedding photos are very valuable to me, but they're not valuable enough for me to want to upload them all to the chain.
No, and I agree there. And like I said, I mean, my opinion is my opinion. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm telling the world what I think about this thing. And the viewpoint I have is like, this is shit. If we can do anything to stop it, we should. And even if that's like ineffective, just signaling that we think that this is shit is still good.
I really don't think that we should actively try to stop it, because if we're actively try to stop it the way Knut do, for example, this is not going to be a good future for Bitcoin as well. Because let's just censor everything. Let's let one dude decide which transaction is good enough.
How is me not relaying stuff that I don't want on my node censorship? Like, the definition of censorship is when you're forced to the forceful takeaway of information from people. So that requires actual aggression. It requires weapons and someone threatening someone. If you say this, then I will do something to you. Me filtering whatever comes into my node is not censorship at all. It's just, I don't want your crap. It's.
I understand the filtering in like social media and those kind of things. That you need to have some spam prevention to have like decent like social networks. But in Bitcoin, where the data is not actually like visible for everyone, it's encrypted. So like, why do you care even? I don't know.
Because it clogs the UTXO set. It does all these bad things. It makes it costlier to run a node.
Well, but for miners, it's kind of good. Like right now, the transaction fees are super low.
No,
so
miners,
like if it increases a little bit with the help of some spam, like it's good for them,
Bitcoin, here's another point we probably disagree on. Bitcoiners should not be concerned with miner incomes. Miners are our slaves, not the other way around.
I think they should be concerned.
If the bigger problem, as I see it, is the miner centralization, which has already happened. I mean, I'd rather promote datum than knots. Like, I think that's a bigger and more important innovation for hash salesmen to take back the power to construct their own block templates again, which is actually helping decentralization of mining. The other stuff is like the salad discussion on top of the beef discussion, which is the centralization of mining.
So just for me, because Ben said, I think already 2 times something that it might be interesting to discuss if you guys also agree with that. He said it's actually not preventable, which I think is a very important point, if it's preventable or not. As we already know it from you, Knut and Ryta, how do you look at like not the discussion of like if we should do it, but just like, is it even something that we could do to prevent this arbitrary data?
Peter Todd's fork of Bitcoin Core Libre Relay already kind of proves that anyone can bypass those filters. So, like, what's the point?
Yes, and that's very popular, isn't it? Anyway, so have you seen a South Park episode called "The Death Camp of Tolerance"? It's one in which Mr. Garrison figures out that he can sue the school if he gets fired for being gay. So he starts putting small animals up Mr. Slave's ass and stuff, and does everything in his power to get fired for being gay so that he can sue the school. and everyone in town just keeps calling him courageous. The more outrageous shit he does. So the sense morale of the whole episode is that just because I tolerate something does not equal that I approve of it. Like, I can tolerate bad behavior, but that doesn't mean I should go and say, all right, then I give up, go do your shit. Like, there's a difference between tolerance and approval.
Fair point, unless you actively try to stop something. Fair point, unless you actively try to fight something. Then it's a fight.
Yeah, and I would say I don't agree with the framing that it is approval of these things to make the relay rules more in line with the consensus rules. I don't think that is approval of putting more random stuff or more arbitrary data into the chain.
Well, if like Core V30 introduces this change, and 21% of the network is now against that change because 21% of the network runs NOTs now. So they introduced something that clearly, even though it's not consensus.
It's been inflated, this whole 20%.
Well, yeah, well, whatever.
I was going to say that number is
even if it's 10%. You know, so at least Core V30 is not being adopted very much at all. Like, people are still running 29. And
the adoption speed of Core V30 so far has been about the same as the adoption speed of any other new version of Core. It takes time for people to upgrade. People are on relatively slow schedules.
The point is, if you're making a change that this big part of the network is obviously against, then maybe you should rethink that change and not make it, and not call people retards for not wanting shit on the
So I disagree with the framing of arguing and just like calling people retards for anything really. I prefer sensible debate and discussion, but I don't think it's a good argument to say that it looks like there are 20% of the nodes which are NOTs, and therefore there is 20% of people against it. I do think that number is relatively inflated. I think there's a large sybil of NOTs nodes being spun up. But that aside, I also don't think it's Core's responsibility to care that much about the relay rules that other people are running. There are different Bitcoin node implementations out there. You are free to run whichever one you wish, whichever one has whatever rules you care about. As long as we're running the same consensus rules, they will stay fine and everyone's in sync on the chain which gets produced. Relay rules are not consensus. Relay rules are just what you choose to do with your node, and I think you are welcome to choose to do whatever you want with your node. You could run Libre Relay and do relay absolutely everything. You could run Core and relay most things, or you could run NOTs and relay a lot less. That's entirely up to you. You could even modify your own rules to relay different things. But I don't think that is the responsibility of the Core development team to bow to any. 100% of people could be against it, and I'd still say they can change it as they want. It's their relay rules.
Yeah, but they're called maintainers, right, for a reason, and not developers. Right?
They're the maintainers of the Bitcoin Core software, not of Bitcoin.
No, yeah.
Those two things are different.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we're free to not upgrade if we don't want to.
Yeah,
I know a ton of people.
Is anyone forcing you to? Is anybody saying you must run Bitcoin Core V30?
No. But I'm just wishing that they would listen to the will of the community more and not make changes unless there's, even to mempool policy or whatnot, a relay policy. If there's not an overwhelming consensus that the people want that.
But the community disagreed. Like, the community didn't fully support your idea.
Well, it didn't fully support V30 either.
But I think the majority supported the V-Core, the Core stance, and not CP.
No, I know a lot of people that refuse to run NOTs because they distrust Luke or whatever, or for various reasons. But they still very much dislike this change in Core 30. Yeah, there's a lot of people like that don't want to upgrade to Core 30 because of this very change. So it is the most contagious change since forever. Like
block size wars were larger.
Block size wars, yeah.
By the way, you said that the knots is inflated. I was always confused with that because I was like, a node is a node. Like, what does it mean? Is it inflated?
A node is a node, but an economic node is what counts. A node that somebody is actually using to perform transactions. A node which nobody is using can appear on the network and is entirely irrelevant. So I could go on AWS right now and spin up 100 new Bitcoin Core V30 nodes, and all of a sudden it looks like there's 100 new Bitcoin Core V30 nodes on the network, but they're not doing anything. You know, the only one which is my one running that I'm actually performing transactions on. So I think there are a lot of nodes that are being spun up in order to make the numbers look bigger that aren't actually being used in economic transactions.
I think the term economic node is flawed and confusing because it's used to describe like nodes who actually verify incoming transactions, like so bigger nodes basically, and with more traffic on them.
No.
Well,
my single little node at home is an economic node the moment I perform a single transaction.
Yeah. All right, but what I'm getting at is that every single person, including no coiners and shit coiners and whatnot, every single person on Earth is an economic node in the global economy, and we all influence one another. And if enough users of Coinbase, for instance, signal to Coinbase that they won't use their services unless they run this or that software, then they can be counted as economic nodes too. Like, it all comes down to this being, at the end of the day, the node is a person, not a machine.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but that's entirely aside from the point about the node count. You know, like 20% of nodes.
Yeah, we
appear to be
can
dots
question that as
Yeah.
much as we want, but I don't claim to know if that's a true number or not. Pun intended, not. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I just hope that Core 30 doesn't get enough traction here to actually have an impact on the future of the network.
So here's my prediction on camera. It will gain a lot of traction, and it's not going to be a big deal. It's just going to blow over, and we're not going to see a whole bunch of new types of spam appearing or lots of new spam. It's just going to be about the same as it always was.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
I have one more question, and this is just like literally me asking because like I hear that argument of like, okay, if we have Bitcoin Core V30, we will have a higher cost of running a node. But then in my mind, it's like, doesn't it come down to the block size limit that is set in place, and doesn't it influence like that's why we have the block size limit there, that we just cannot go over that, or am I wrong?
You're completely correct. And in fact, I would say if people use OP return instead of some of the other ways of storing arbitrary data, you will actually have lower cost of running a node because OP return is prunable, whereas some of the other ways are not. So, Knut actually mentioned earlier about bloating the UTXO set. This does the exact opposite. It reduces the size of the UTXO set.
The key there is instead of. And I don't think it is an instead of. I think they will do that too.
If it were in addition, then you will have a net neutral. If they do it instead of, you will have a net negative.
I wouldn't call it a net neutral because it's still raising fees for normal people who want to use Bitcoin as money.
So, could they start out-competing some actual transactions which people are trying to do? Yes, but then I would say those transactions weren't as valuable as the spam ones. It does just come down to what people value. And what I value may be different to what someone else values. I do not value a monkey picture at all. I think that's utter bullshit. I do not care. I do not want a monkey picture. I think it's just an idiotic thing to buy and tie to a single set, which, as you mentioned earlier correctly, is impossible. You can't actually tie it to a set. That's imaginary. It's a layer put on top.
Yeah.
But if somebody else values that and is willing to pay money for it, I cannot stop them, and I actually think they should be able to pay for that block space.
So would you agree with me that the most important thing to do here is to educate people that owning a monkey JPEG is completely retarded?
I will support you on that, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ryta, you disagree?
Yeah, well, I mean, as like a graphic designer, kind of like I have to disagree.
We call that retarded with an I. It's a compliment. You have your own word now.
Yeah, no, I think like it's a free society, and it's Bitcoin is a technology of freedom, and it's for everyone. So if people see the possibility and the opportunity to use it however they want, even if it's like some silly project, even if it's like one 3D designer wants to create their own collection of like some 3D animated art and then sell it, and they don't want to, for example, use shitcoins, they want something more secure, then I do not see why not. I don't see why is it such a bad thing. Why is it such a big deal? Why you call it a spam when it's just someone's artwork, for example? Of course, when you like the dick pics and like random JPEGs bullshit, yes. But if you actually tie some kind of project, some kind of idea, like some, maybe like if you develop some technology with it that would create some more opportunities for like more even like graphic designers or whatever else, like why the fuck not?
Why the fuck would you need? Would you need to build that?
Well, you don't need, but someone else might need.
If I can pay for it in sats, then I already have the technology that Bitcoin provides me, so I could put the shit somewhere else. Like it's why mess with the money? Like,
but the whole provenance thing and the whole ownership thing, like it should be tied to something that people feel secure, and it shouldn't be just like an image on the website.
Picture. That's the whole point. That you cannot even own the Satoshi. You can just act as if you own it because the Satoshi is special in that sense. But all the other crap, it's just.
But you can own the encrypted data that reveals this photo or something.
No,
right?
you can't. How can you own encrypted data? Like, how do you own data?
Well, if it's stored in like your private wallet and no one can access it.
Yeah, but that's not you owning it. That's you having access to it. So it's not ownership. It's not.
Well,
really ownership.
you were actually talking about ownership right now at your speech, right? Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
that,
and that you can't even own a Satoshi, but it allows you to act as if you owned it as money, because the Satoshi is special.
Then I would, if you're going to go down that route, I would have to argue there's no such thing as ownership. Ownership is simply a social agreement between people that you should have access to something.
Well, it's a legal or rather lawful relationship between me and an object.
Yeah, and a lawful relationship is just a social relationship. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have control over things. You don't necessarily have ownership of things, especially things like a picture.
But one question then, isn't that then just the Oracle problem that we have with the pictures, that you can own maybe something that a third party says, if you own that, you own that picture, but you're still relying on the third party, like kind of like the original of like the banana on the blockchain type of a thing?
Yeah. You still have to trust the third party. That's the whole thing. Like it's not associated with Bitcoin in any other way than through this third party. Like to Bitcoin itself, it's just shit data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to put shit data there, I can't stop them. And
no,
I
but
think
you
they
can
should be allowed to
educate
pay
them
for
that
it.
they shouldn't be retarded and buy this shit.
I will happily work with you on the education side of things, that it is useless and so on, but no.
You should give those people alternatives so that they don't clog the layer 1 and UTXOs. And I think RGB is a perfect alternative, that if people want to create tokens, NFTs, whatever the fuck they want to create with like a Bitcoin-based security, this is what they're going to use. So there will be no need to even do inscriptions anymore if RGB grows.
Yeah, somewhat agree.
Yeah, and I would also agree, like I said, I don't care about those things, but if somebody else does and they're willing to pay for it, fine. And RGB is a good way for them to pay less for it, so hopefully they'll avoid clogging the chain by using RGB. And then everyone's happy.
Wasn't this supposed to be about ideology? By
It was.
I just wanted to say, I think if we talk about Bitcoin ideology, Bitcoin community, and all those kind of topics, we didn't talk about it. We actually just lived through it.
Yeah. Honestly, I was expecting this talk to turn into a political argument between me and Knut, because we often have that argument sitting over a beer at times. But it turned into something else.
It made my job as a moderator very easy.
Yeah, you barely spoke.
I barely spoke. And we're actually at almost the end of the time, because I moderate the next one also and I have to peep in between.
Very important information.
Very important information, especially on camera. I have, yeah, we can put it on the Bitcoin blockchain. One question, does the audience has any questions? I think there's like a lot of interesting topics that we've discussed here. If there's no more question, we can close it down with some closing thoughts from all of them. But I just wanted to check if there's any questions from anyone. Yeah, please. Oh, wait, I will give you.
The question is not technical the way you talked until now, but because you guys are foreigners, you travel a lot in the world. What do you think stops the massive Bitcoin adoption? Is it technological? Is it educational? Is it political, regulational, or whatever?
All of the above, but to me, the biggest thing is simply a lack of understanding, because I think those other things can be worked around if there is appropriate will there, and will comes from understanding, and understanding comes from education. So I really think that's kind of the biggest thing to solve.
Yeah, I actually completely agree.
Yeah, ignorance is what's hindering us, nothing else.
What's the easiest way to touch the NPC mindset and to make it switch? Think like we do.
Let them touch it and play with it themselves as much as possible. So, avoiding plugging my work too much here, but I work for a payments company, Musket, and we make Bitcoin payments as easy as possible, including for the merchants, to the point that a merchant could go with us because we are a better card payments provider, and Bitcoin is just, they're getting this Bitcoin thing as well. That, I think, is one of the best ways, because it spreads people touching it and using it and being able to actually interact with it. And the more people do that, the more they begin to understand it.
Yeah, I'd say lead by example. So that mostly means, hodl for 10 years and then employ them to clean your golden toilet, and they will understand that they should have done the same thing.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Awesome. Then I would say I will give each of you one chance of giving one message that you want to get across to the audience here. And let's start again with Ben.
So going back to the original concept of this talk about ideology, no matter what you believe, unless you believe that money shouldn't exist, because I don't think that's really compatible with Bitcoin, and there are people who believe that, but unless you believe that, I think Bitcoin can be for absolutely anyone, regardless of ideologies and beliefs. I think there's a lot of people who think that you have to have a certain political view, you have to align with certain ideals, you have to think that this group should behave this way and that group is bad because they behave a different way. I think none of that matters to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can be for a much broader audience, and in fact we should want it to. Bitcoin is for enemies is kind of a well-known phrase, and I would say that's important in that you don't want to live in a walled garden with everybody outside the walls, because that's just building a prison for yourself.
What builds up most the mass adoption is actually using Bitcoin in all the other tools like social media, for example, like Nostr does, in like the news channels like Stacker News does. So give people more tools where they can actually practice using Bitcoin on the day-to-day life. This is how you incentivize them to like make a little bit money, interact, communicate, whatever. So, and creating easy-to-use UIs as well, so that people can easily understand and like with 1-2 clicks figure it out. Because as long as it's being like complicated and people perceive that it's like, oh, this is too technological for me, I will never understand Bitcoin, then the mass adoption slows down. But the more tools we have, like Nostr and Stacker News and all that, the easier it goes.
I would agree. And I'd say accept Bitcoin for your goods and services. Whatever you do, start accepting Bitcoin for it. Don't buy from exchanges, don't sell to exchanges, and don't keep your Bitcoin on exchanges. Try to get them peer-to-peer. Try to actually live this thing. Don't comply with whatever your self-proclaimed leaders tell you is correct. Like, lead by example and just find your path. Each and every one of us, we have different paths and different ways to navigate this, because we still live in a time where we need 1 foot in fiat and 1 foot in Bitcoin, unfortunately. But whenever you feel comfortable to opt out even more, do. And brush your teeth.
Thank you so much to all of you.